Hello, this is Bailey Leasure, and this is the Leasure Sports Podcast. This week. I'm going to be giving my predictions on the upcoming MLB season. Who will win the divisions? Who will face who in the playoffs? And who will be in the World Series? And who will take it all? So I'm going to start off. I'm going to look at the American League East and the National League East and give my thoughts on who will win. So the American League East, it's pretty interesting. I think it's gonna be a competitive division, and I think the two candidates that will be going at each other are going to be the Red Sox and the Toronto Blue Jays. I could see the Yankees, being a third wheel as Baltimore is. I think Tampa most likely will be in last. Uh, Toronto, they lost Edwin in Encarnacion, but they were able to retain Jose Batista. They did, I believe, get another big player. I think it was Kendry Morales was the guy that they probably helped fill in for Jose Batista. I could be wrong on this. So if anybody wants to dispute it in the comments and correct me, that's fine too. But I think with the Red Sox getting Chris Sale from the White Sox, I think that that's going to give them that boost. And fortunately, David Price recently has been injured, and fortunately, he didn't have to get Tommy John surgery. So I think with that positive news, even though the Red Sox lost their main leader in David Ortiz, I think they still are going to be a very competitive team. And I think the Red Sox are going to take first place. I think the Toronto Blue Jays will take second. The Yankees will be third. The Baltimore Orioles will be fourth, even though I could see those positions switch. And then last place, it will be the Tampa Bay Rays. So for the NL East, this is going to be pretty. I think this division is going to be pretty interesting because, I think a lot of teams have made improvements. Specifically, the Atlanta Braves. I think with Dansby Swanson, I think he's going to be the next big star in baseball. Um, but overall, the Nationals, even though they were in first place, I don't know. With the Mets going to be healthy, they're going to get all their big pitchers back. Syndergaard, Matt Harvey, um, Jacob DeGrom. I think they have the most depth when it comes to pitching. So overall, I got to give it, from pitching wise, even though they got the hitters with Zimmerman or excuse me, with Harper, I got to give it to the Mets. I think the Nationals will be in second. The Atlanta Braves, I think they'll make a big step up from being in last place. They'll be in third. The Marlins, that's an interesting team. I think they could be in third as well. I think it's really going to be hard for them to, not only to find a player. They unfortunately lost their big starter and one of the most popular players on the Marlins and in Major League Baseball, and Jose Fernandez when he unfortunately passed away before the season ended. So we'll see what happens there. I think the Marlins, they'll be a competitive team as well, but I think it's going to be hard for them to find that next big ace and next big popular player that's huge for them. So I'll put them in fourth. The Phillies, I'll put them in fifth. So I think these divisions, you'll see some wild card teams, but I'll predict who the wild card teams once I get done with the divisions. I'm going to move on to the Central. This is going to be pretty interesting because this is an interesting division. Um, Cleveland with getting Edwin Encarnacion and having that big bullpen and with Andrew Miller, I think the Cleveland Indians, you have to put them in first place. I mean, they were so close to winning the World Championship, and unfortunately, they blew a 3-1 lead, became the second. The city of Cleveland came back from a 3-1 deficit in the NBA Finals, and then they blew one against the Cubs. But I've heard 3-1 jokes enough, so moving on. I think the Royals, I think they'll come. I think they'll make a comeback this year. I think they got a lot of good talent, and I think they'll come back and be competitive. But I think with Edwin Encarnacion on the Indians and putting it on that high-powered offense or that high-powered hitting, he's their big, they're going to be their big hitter in the lineup. I got to give it to the Indians. I say they'll be first. I think Kansas City will be second. Detroit will be third. Chicago will be fourth. The White Sox, and then I'll pick Minnesota. And here we go. Here's the National League Central. The Cubs. I mean, come on. I'm gonna pick them. They finally ended the 108-year streak. Came back down from a 3-1 deficit. Come on. They were able to get Wade Davis to replace Aroldis Chapman because they knew they were not going to be able to re-sign him. They did lose Dexter Fowler, which is going to be a big minus, but they still got some great outfielders. So Cubs. I mean, look at the pitching. I mean, you have. Come on, you have John Lester, Jake Arrieta, Kyle Hendricks, Mike Montgomery. He could be that fifth starter. You got John Lackey. I mean, you look at the bullpen. I mean, they're hitting. I mean, you got Chris Bryant, the MVP, Anthony Rizzo, Kyle Schwarber. You got all these big hitters. I mean, come on. And the Cubs, number one. I think the only team that could probably be competitive with them is the St. Louis Cardinals. I mean, you don't want to count them out. Before the Cubs started dominating in baseball. Well, maybe not dominant yet, but before last year, Cardinals were really the runners of that division. Nobody for years. So cannot count out the St. Louis Cardinals at all. I think at third it will be Pittsburgh, fourth will be the Brewers, and then fifth will be the Cincinnati Reds. Now I'm going to move on to the West. I could see this being a little bit interesting. But I think the Rangers they'll take first place. They've always had a good job winning the American League West, but at the same time they've had trouble in the playoffs. I mean, no doubt about that over the years. But I think they'll take the division. Second and third, this is really, really weird because last year the Mariners won 86 games and kind of surprised people. For now, I'm going to take them in second place, but I could very much see the Houston Astros, who in 2015 they won that division. So I could easily switch that to the Astros. But for now, I'm going to put them in the Mariners. The Astros, they're kind of on fence team, on bubble team, so I'll put them in third for now. The Angels, I'll put them in fourth, and the Oakland A's, I'll put them in fifth. So, and now lastly, we're going to move on to the National League West. So this is an interesting division. It's an odd year, so I don't see the Giants winning. No, they're a great team, but the Dodgers, for the most part, they've really been ruling this division. And with Clayton Kershaw and all their other players, I see no reason why they shouldn't. So I'm going to put the Dodgers in first place. Pick the Giants in third or second. I'll put the Arizona Diamondbacks in third. I think they'll have they'll bounce back. I mean, in 2014, they won 63 games. In 2015, they won 79 games, and it looked like they were going to make a big improvement last year, but that did not come to fruition. Although, I am not surprised Zach Greinke had a bad year because in 2015, he had a ridiculous season. So there was no way for him to repeat that. It's so hard to repeat that. But I think he's a veteran pitcher, and I think he'll bounce back from that. I think the keys for the Arizona Diamondbacks, if they want to improve, AJ Pollock's got to stay healthy. If Paul Goldschmidt has an MVP year, you never know. But at the same time, I think with how this division, for the most part, it's usually competitive and it's a usually two-team race. I believe that will be the case this year. So in fourth place, the Rockies, and then in fifth, the San Diego Padres, who are unfortunately now the only team in San Diego. Professional sports team in San Diego, so unfortunate, but it is what it is. Even though it really seems like the LA doesn't even want the Chargers, but that's another discussion. So moving on, I'm gonna pick who are gonna be the wild card teams in each league. I think Toronto will be the first wild card team in the American League East, and in a surprise move, I'm gonna put the Kansas City Royals in the Central. I think that will happen again. I think the Royals, they'll return to the playoffs this year. I think there's a lot of I think they'll have a bounce back season this year. And then in the NL East, I'm going to put the Nationals and the Cardinals. No surprise there. I think they'll both. I think they'll both be. They got enough star power on both their teams and enough experience to make the playoffs. Um, so now this is where the playoffs come into play. I think with the wild card games, you would have Toronto versus Kansas City in the American League wild card team, and then the National League wild card team. You'd have Toronto versus Kansas City, and then you have the Nats versus the Nationals versus the Cardinals. In the American League, I'm going to take the Toronto Blue Jays, and in the National League, I'm going to put the Nats. So that sets up my NLDS and my ALDS. The first team would be the Red Sox against the Blue Jays, and then the Indians versus the Texas Rangers. And then I'm going to have the Cubs versus the Nats and the Dodgers versus the Mets. In the Boston versus Toronto series, this is what I think will be the matchups in the playoffs. I'm going to put Boston, and I'm going to pick the Indians. And then I'm going to pick in the National League, I'm going to pick the Cubs, and I'm going to pick the Mets. And then so that would set up the American League Championship Series. I'm going to pick the Boston Red Sox versus the Cleveland Indians, and the Cubs versus the Mets. I'm going to pick the Cleveland Indians. I'm going to pick the Cubs, and we're going to get it. I feel like it's going to be the Cubs versus the Indians again. And for how that World Series was, considering it was one of the greatest World Series of all time, I mean, Game 7 you could put up with any game. It was one of the best games in sports history. No doubt about that. I mean, it had all the drama. It had everything. And I think the Cubs and Indians, they'll do it again. I think it will be a little bit of a shorter series. Now, the big factor into the season is the All-Star game no longer will decide who has home field advantage in the World Series. So a lot of people are kind of mixed onto that. I kind of think it's a little bit better, but at the same time, it kind of takes away from the All-Star game and that competitive factor. But it is what it is. I think this will be Cubs in 6. The Cubs will have home field advantage, and I think Cleveland will put up a good performance. But I think the Cubs, they have enough. They've won it once again. I think they'll take it all again this year. So that's it for my my postseason prediction and my 2017 MLB season predictions. Now I'm going to move on. I didn't introduce this in the beginning of my video, but I'm going to move on to, obviously in March, while spring training is going, the World Baseball Classic will be going. And I'm going to give a little bit of my thoughts, more thoughts than prediction. Now, I was going to record this and release this yesterday, but what had happened was I couldn't find the time. During that process, I didn't realize scheduling that the World Baseball Classic started today. And the first game that had happened was South Korea versus Israel. And Israel, in extra innings, shockingly beat South Korea, who's, I believe, in the top 5 in World Baseball Classic rankings. So I thought, South Korea, now that they've lost this game, I mean, they were one of the favorites in this tournament. And I'm not sure about that now. I'm going to just predict who's going to get out of the Pool A, B, and C, and D, and my thoughts on that. I think, I'm going to go out on a limb, and with that loss, I'm not sure if South Korea is going to bounce back from that. I'm going to take, to advance, I'm going to take Israel versus Chinese Taipei to advance to the next round. Pool B, this is pretty interesting pool, but I think Japan and Cuba are going to probably get it. I mean, come on. Japan's won has won 2 of the 3 World Baseball Classics. I'll put them into it. And now Pool C, which is very interesting. The U.S. are in this pool, and it's interesting because I think the United States, they have some good bullpen pieces. They have David Robertson, they have Andrew Miller, they have Tanner Roark. Those are just a few names I can name off the top of my head. And they have some great hitters. But unfortunately, they had some starting pitching, but unfortunately, they lost it. They had Sonny Gray, they have Max Scherzer. I think the big pitcher they have is Chris Archer. But I believe that if we get into the later rounds, especially in the championship round, the U.S. could get some big pitchers like Clayton Kershaw or Madison Bumgarner. I think the United States, they have some good hitters. They have Paul Goldschmidt, they have Buster Posey, they have Nolan Arenado, they have Andrew McCutchen, they have Giancarlo Stanton. They have a lot of great players, but they also they're going to be playing Colombia in their first game later this week. They have to win that game because their next two games are going to be really hard to advance. Uh, Against Colombia, or after the Colombia game, they have to play against the Dominican Republic, who are probably the favorites to win the World Baseball Classic after winning in 2013, and then they'll be playing Canada. So I think the U.S. I think in Pool C, I see the Dominican Republic being probably the first #1 seed, and then the U.S. being the second. And then Pool D, this has a lot of interesting things. You have Venezuela, you have Mexico, you have Puerto Rico and Italy. Now, Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic, a lot of people, those are the two teams that finished with the 1 and 2 teams in in the last World Baseball Classic. I think Puerto Rico has a really good shot of getting back there and potentially winning. But I'm going to take Puerto Rico and Venezuela in Pool D. And overall, I'm not sure how the playoff format works, but I think the favorites get into the championship round, I think will be the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. I think Japan would be after that. I think the 5 teams that I could see in the championship round, 5 teams are Dominican Republic, Japan, Puerto Rico, Cuba, and then in the 5th, I think the United States. So those are the 5 teams. Those are just the teams I think that will get in. But those are my thoughts on the World Baseball Classic, and also that's pretty much it for this week. I'm gonna probably do a podcast in a few days because this week in the NFL there's the free agency period is gonna begin. I'll talk about some free agents and some of the signings that will happen by then. It's gonna be pretty interesting, especially for I'm from Arizona, so I cover the Arizona Cardinals. They got a lot of decisions that they're going to have to make on who to re-sign, and there's a lot of people thinking they're going to lose 2 of their big free agents in Tony Jefferson and Calais Campbell. A lot of releases that happened this week for the NFL free agency, that impact the NFL free agency, but I'll talk about that later this week. I'm probably going to do that podcast by Friday, potentially. So, that's pretty much it. As I'm recording this, I'm not done recording it, but by the time I'm done recording this, check out my review of Logan, my first ever film review that I've done on this channel. So check that out. That's it for this week. Stay tuned or check out my Logan review. Click if you like the video, subscribe if you like the content I come up on that channel, comment if you agree or disagree on my views. Thanks everybody for watching, and I'll see you all later.